Harsh
and
is
good enough.
Harsh is going to answer to the queries on the chat room, and
Okay,
finally, when there will be question and answer also, we may also suggest few questions also. So
Yes,
we
sir.
would
We are
suggest.
live, sir.
Actually, we are right. Okay, great, great.
So,
I think we are
good
still
evening,
having some.
everyone.
We're still having some students who are coming.
Yes, join in.
Yeah. Additionally, we are also live on the YouTube, right?
Yes. So, good evening, everyone. Today, this evening, all law school aspirants. This is the dream panel group wherein you find Mr. Harsh Kagrani, who is a director of legalist tutorials, and one of my idols, and Mr. Deepu Krishna, whom uh, generations, I will say generation because in law school the life is of half a decade, have looked up to when they are preparing for law entrance examination, and also after that he has been guiding, he has been a guiding force for many, guiding light for many rather. And Harsh Kagrani is currently one of the most famous uh, mentor for law school aspirants. Sir, today we are going to discuss about the strategy which a student can adopt for a short success in LSAT India exam 2021. So, over to you, Deepu, sir.
Thank you so much, Harsh, for that lovely introduction. I had prepared myself to introduce Harsh, so but you did it quite well. Anyway, let me go ahead and do the same. Harsh has
Deepu sir, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Just give me a second on this.
Uh-huh.
There's a small tech issue at my end. I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just take 10 seconds on this.
Okay, so by that time, I'll lay down the house rules for the attendees. Okay, welcome. Good evening to each one of you. How are we going to go ahead with the event? It's very simple. I'll be asking some questions to Harsh and he will be answering them. So they will be going to be LSAT law entrance specific questions where he is going to explain one by one each question. Okay. So we are going to take questions from students also. And those questions will be taken by us at the end of the session. So you may shoot at us questions. Some students may have questions which are specific to Jindal Global Law School. So I have Harsh with me, Harsh Vardhan. Okay, he's one of my colleague. He's going to answer to all those questions which are specific to Jindal Global Law School. Okay, because we have called this LSAT PEP session. So I and Harsh Gagrani, both of us are going to answer to the questions which are related to LSAT specific. Okay, so you may have many questions related to, like I just found a question where someone was asking me whether we can crack LSAT now. Yes, but you cannot register for LSAT because there are students who have registered. We just closed in the applications for the same, and we have a lot of students who have a lot of queries, etc. So all those queries are going to be answered today. So this is basically a talk for those students. Now, if you have not filled up LSAT, don't worry, because Jindal Global Law School has another program called as BA Legal Studies, where what we do is those students who could not give, and through BA Legal Studies is our 6-year program in law. That is 3 plus 3. Okay, 3 years of BA Legal Studies and 3 years of LLB from Jindal Global Law School itself. So I'll talk about that also, that how, what is this course all about, etc., at the end of the session. But I also want to enlighten you upon one thing, that in case if you have missed out on your LSAT, you can also fill up another examination which is taken by Jindal Global Law School. It is called as JSAT Law. It's very similar to LSAT. The questions are also very similar. The pattern is also very similar. Okay, so we are still we're still taking students for BA Legal Studies, LLM, and also for LLB, a 3-year LLB through JSAT Law. LLM is closed now. LSAT is closed now. Okay, so for LSAT, this session is for all the students who have filled up LSAT forms and are now waiting for the examination. So, we have pulled up one of the best names from the industry who's right now preparing students for all the examinations. His students have been toppers in almost all the entrance examinations. He's a junior of mine. He's from the same law school that I belong to, and he's a big name in this industry. So students almost, as in, if 60,000 students are sitting in the examination called as the Common Law Admission Test, law aspirants, I'm 100% sure around 50,000 students 100% know his name. That is how he has spread his reputation. So here is Harsh, and we are about to start with the session. So I've laid down the rules, so you can ask us questions in the chat box. And in the chat box, I have my colleague Harsh, who's there, who will be noting those questions down. So your specific questions shall be taken at the end of it. So I'll go ahead and ask my questions to Harsh, which are specific. And so let's start with the first question. So Harsh, the first question is, my question is very direct. I'll go to the direct topic of our question. What should a LSAT India taker do in this last few days? That is one question. And be very specific to the students that what should they be doing in this last few days. Yeah.
Okay. So hello everyone. It's great to be here. It's great to see you, Deepu sir, after a long time. So yes, coming to the first question. So I think there's just 1 week to go for LSAT, the May attempt. And in the last 1 week, what I'm presuming is that most of the students, they would have done some kind of a background research as to how to go about preparing for LSAT. I'm sure they must have solved at least a couple of mocks. They're already well acquainted with the pattern, with the kind of sections which are asked. So coming specifically to the strategy of the last 1 week, let's be very specific here. Number one, you should be solving at least 2 to 3 mocks. You should not be solving a lot of mocks, because if you get a score which is not a very desirable score in a couple of mocks, it won't be a very good state of mind to be in just before the examination. So 2 to 3 mocks should be much more than enough, so that they prepare you well for the final test. That's number one. Number two, at least 4 to 5 hours of specific preparation only for LSAT should be done over the next 7 days. So I'm sure most of you would be preparing for a lot of law entrances. So there are sections which come in other law entrances which don't come in LSAT. Sections like GK, sections like legal. You can still go on with them, but what I would suggest is for the next 7 days, don't really spend a lot of time around legal knowledge, around current affairs, around reading newspaper for current affairs. You can still read the newspaper, to improve your language skills, to just, read at a stretch, which is again required for LSAT. But yes, at least 4 to 5 hours daily should be devoted to LSAT over the next 7 days. And now what should be done in those 4 to 5 hours? At least a couple of hours should be devoted to logical reasoning. So logical reasoning, which a lot of students, call critical reasoning, those questions where there is a passage given and then there is a question asked on assumption, strengthening, weakening arguments, boldface, etc., flaw. So at least a couple of hours, because almost half of the LSAT paper, it comprises only of those specific kind of critical reasoning questions, which comes under the logical reasoning section. So the proportionate amount of time should be given in your preparation also. That's one. And the remaining 2 to 3 hours should be equally divided between analytical reasoning and reading comprehension. Now, what are the sources? How should we prepare is something which I think we'll be discussing over the next half an hour to 45 minutes. But yes, 2 to 3 mocks, number one, 4 to 5 hours of very specific LSAT prep. So it should be absolutely clear in your mind that these 4 hours is not something that the kind of questions that you're saying. And why I'm really focusing on this is, if you think that I'm just doing logical reasoning, you might end up doing topics which don't come in LSAT, which might come in other entrances. So that's why I'm really focusing on advising that 4 hours specifically for LSAT prep over the next 7 days. So these are the 2 things I think which the students should take care of, in addition to the other things which are connected to home proctor test. Because I think before 25th, the students need to complete their, I think I'm forgetting what do they call it, but sort of a readiness check. So in addition to all that, take things that anyway students should be taking care of, but these are the academic things that you should be doing. So yes.
Great. So I think the message is quite clear. This examination is around the corner. You're almost in the final leg of it. So I think the message was really clear from Harsh. Be very focused on this pattern of examination, because they follow a different pattern and an easier pattern, but don't take it too much easier, because scoring is something which I and Harsh are going to discuss right now. So let's go and discuss the first section of LSAT, which we will discuss here, is reading comprehension. A very, very important part of, I would say, even law graduation, because once you are into law school, you'll have to do a lot of reading. When I say reading, I and Harsh would agree to it. That's reading of lots and lots of case laws, which are spread from, say, 700 pages to 800 pages. But we don't read the entire thing. We have a certain strict pattern of how we read those case laws. From where do we pick the strongest argument? How the judge, what did he specifically pointed out on? And there are many interesting things also which are written in a particular judgment. And that is why reading comprehension is tested very specifically in LSAT as well as in PLAT also. But LSAT is a very different form of asking questions. Now, my question to Harsh is, do you have a trick, or do you have what you call a certain guidance for students about how to go about those reading comprehension questions?
So, so even before we start, let's first decode a reading comprehension question, which usually comes in LSAT. So there's a passage given, and the passage can be on pretty much any topic under the earth. So but yes, they do well to explain that topic in depth. That's number one. Having a kind of a background knowledge about that, it definitely helps. In fact, I was just going through a research where it was said that if a student is well acquainted with at least 59% of the words which have been used in a reading comprehension passage, he'll be able to decode it well. Now, I'm not saying that this is a number which a lot of students can achieve in the last 1 week. Last 1 week has to be a lot about practice, but just data which I wanted to share with everyone. So there's a passage given, and then there are 4 to 5 questions given. The questions can be contextual. The questions can be such which only ask something which was given in the passage, or the questions can be generic. So it can be around tone of the author. It can be around summary of the passage. It can be around a good heading for the passage, etc., etc. What a student should ideally be doing while solving the passage is, once he has read the passage, he should take a moment, not a lot of time, but possibly 15 seconds to 30 seconds, in just summarizing the passage inside his mind. That really helps with the questions. Believe me, students think that it's a waste of time, and they're always in a hurry. And because in LSAT, there's a sectional time limit also. The students always end up thinking that, I need to do a lot of questions in a very limited time span. But this is something which is going to improve your accuracy a lot. Just summarizing the passage, just answering a few questions. Number one, what exactly was the author trying to say? So even in 400-500 words, there's generally just 2 or 3 points which the author is trying to put forward. You have to identify those 2 to 3 points, because most of the questions are going to be centered around those 2 to 3 points. So questions won't be on just whether this word has been given above or not. No, the questions won't be such. The questions will be around the idea which has been put forward by the author. It is around the opinion which has been put forward by the author. And you need to have that in mind before moving on to the questions. That is number one. That is the biggest tip which I would give to a student while practicing the RC questions. There are a lot of other things which the students would already be aware of, but this is something which I see a lot of students not do. So they should be doing this after reading the passage. Take out 15 to 30 seconds, summarize the whole passage inside your mind, answer a few questions. That is what was the author exactly trying to say. That's one. Number two, over the next 7 days, ensure that you practice. Do not focus a lot on theory in reading comprehension. I would not give the same advice for logical reasoning, which we'll talk after this. But in reading comprehension, do not focus or do not dwell a lot around theory in the last 1 week. Even if you understand that how to find out the tone of the author, or how to find out the main idea of the passage, it's too less a time to really implement it properly. So you should just be practicing a lot of questions over the next 1 week and practice it from various sources. The LSAT website, they themselves, they give a lot of prep tests around this. You can go for that. And I'm sure a lot of students are already aware of a lot of sources. But yes, next 7 days should be devoted predominantly to a lot of practice. But the practice should not be very generic in nature. While practicing, ensure, again, I'm telling it for the third time because I know the importance of that. After reading the passage, please summarize the passage inside your mind before moving on to the questions. Other things you should be doing, one which I would strongly suggest is, and this is not just for English or reading comprehension, it's generally for the complete LSAT paper. Over the next 7 days, every day, read for at least 2 hours at a stretch without taking a break. See, LSAT is a long paper and it's very content rich. So unlike a lot of, let's say we talk about CLAT, the old pattern, I'm sure a lot of students would already be aware of that, where there were a lot of questions, but the questions were very to the point. Who was the first prime minister of XYZ, or etc. etc. Where the reading was comparatively less than the new pattern of CLAT or the pattern of LSAT. So you need to have this habit of sitting at a place and concentrating and reading text for 2 hours at a stretch, without really compromising on the accuracy. You would not be able to do that if you do not have a habit of that. So yes, 7 days is not an ideal time, but still we have some time to go for the examination. Every day, also give a couple of hours only to reading of a lot of stuff at a stretch, without taking breaks, so that you are well prepared for the final examination. So these are the suggestions which I would give around English language predominantly.
Great. I would also add to it. I had a student long back who was from a small town, and he really had a bad experience with English language. So, though he had studied English in a very different manner, but then he did not take it seriously. So when he came and joined the coaching, he started realizing that English matters. And then, he had some senior students also who came down and who discussed these things with him. So he could understand, what he did. Reading comprehension was always an Achilles heel for him. So what he did was, he started preparing his own reading comprehension questions. And believe me, he used to bring it to me and get it tested. And he used to create his own, as in he would pick up a para from Hindu's editorial, and then he'll pick it in front of him, and he'll keep a question of Platt in front of him, that how the questions are made. And very similarly, he would create questions. And you know what? Slowly, he started realizing what is the intent of the examiner, as we say, what is the examiner looking forward in that particular question. That is one thing, probably, if you guys have time, you should sit down and try to do it. Because believe me, at the end of the session, this guy was a dude at reading comprehension. And I still remember him, the accuracy at which he used to solve questions. So it's very simple. You are putting yourself in the shoes of the examiner, and then you are trying to create those questions, and then you realize, acha, this is how they create questions. And then he did it. That's something, again, which you can do in this last few days to realize. But believe me, guys, reading comprehension is very important for you when you join law schools. Because that is one of those skills which is going to be important for you, not just in your class. In class, I remember, in the very first class where we were being taught law, the professor walked in and he had given us a case law, Donahue versus Stevenson, the very famous case law. And he had asked us to read. We thought, yeah, mazak hai, ho jayega. But then we had with us some students who had completed first year in some law schools and had joined us. So they knew the trick. So in the next session, when the professor came, I remember they were picking up paras out of the entire case law, which was like, which was into many pages. And we struggled. And they were quoting that, okay, this is exactly where justice said this. This is where the lawyer said that. And we were like, okay, this is how you learn. And believe me, those guys knew it because they did not read the entire case law. We read 3 to 4 pages and we were like, nahi ho pa raha bhai, it is too much now. But then those guys exactly knew how it has to be read. And then we slowly followed suit. We also started reading the same. So I would suggest one of those golden advices which Harsh has given you right now is start reading. Because in law school, I would suggest you, as in now it is not possible, I used to suggest the same to students, that you should take a walk into law school if you are permitted inside and try watching students even sitting at a cafeteria, even below, even if he's on a date. You would see that he would carry a book. He would have a book in him. It might be by Khalid Hosseini, it might be by Salman Rushdie, it can be by Arun Shore, and they might be reading it. They'll be reading it on the go. And that's what our life becomes. We have to read a lot and do not take reading as boring, because I used to see reading as very boring. That was when I was in school. But once I stepped into law school, it became a passion. And every book became an experience. And if you ask both of us which are our favorite books, there will be a lineage of books and we'll still not be done. So reading is one of those very golden advices which Harsh has given you. In the last few days, you can do that. You can do that because you are not going anywhere, right? And I would suggest read on the screen because it's a home proctored test. So books give you a different feel. But when you have to look at a screen and you have to sit for so many hours, it is a different task altogether. Okay, so moving on to the next question, and it might be Harsh's favorite question right now, because it's his favorite topic also. Critical reasoning, because I've been told by many students he teaches critical reasoning like anything. So Harsh, over to you. Critical reasoning. How should a student approach critical reasoning questions?
Okay. So the critical reasoning or the logical reasoning, as it's known in the LSAT circles by the name logical reasoning. So all of us know that there are almost 50% of the LSAT paper comprises of logical reasoning. And this logical reasoning that we're talking about is specific critical reasoning paragraph-based questions, whereby a paragraph is given, which let's say would be of 50 words, 75 words, 100 words, 125 words, and generally 1 or 2 questions are asked on that. Now, the trick here is, which was not the trick in reading comprehension. The trick is really knowing the theory around which the question is framed. It is still a trick in reading comprehension also, just that I'm not completely confident whether the student would be able to understand and grasp that in the last 1 week. But that can be done in logical reasoning. So there are broadly 8-9 topics, out of which maximum questions are framed in any examination where critical reasoning is asked. I can even name the topics for the students. It's assumptions, number 1, strengthening arguments, weakening arguments, flaw, boldface, parallel reasoning. I think broadly these, and one is the resolve the paradox, etc., etc. So these are the prominent, and inference and conclusion, another very prominent topic. So these are the topics on which, believe me, most of the questions would be framed. Now, if you do not know what is the meaning of boldface, or if you do not know that what is a paradox, or you just know what is a paradox, but you do not know how to resolve a paradox. You know what is the meaning of assumption. You just know the etymological or just a dictionary meaning of assumption, but you do not know a funda by the name assumption negation technique, which is used by a lot of students, but you do not know that. Even if you are a very avid reader, even if you were able to comprehend the passage very soon, but if you don't know the funda behind the question which is asked, believe me, pretty much all your answers would be wrong. So what you should be focusing on in the last 7 days is, and yes, and one more thing, one more good news, for all these concepts, you just need to know a few tips and tricks. So these are not concepts like chapters in mathematics, where you need to know a lot of theory, then you need to practice a lot of questions, and then you need to practice over the long period of time. Only then you can, really be very good with that topic. It's not like that. You can just take half an hour and understand what an assumption is, how to find out an assumption in a question, what is an assumption negation technique, and then it's only about practice. And the same thing applies to all the 7, 8, 9 topics which I've told you. So in the last 7 days, ensure that the list of topics which I've just given, whoever your mentor is, whoever your teacher is, ensure that you understand that, how to solve questions on these topics, number 1. If not, just a hack, just Google how to solve assumption questions under 45 seconds, how to solve conclusion questions under 45 seconds. You'll get very to the point tips. Understand those tips and apply to the practice and the questions that you'll be practicing daily. That's number 1. Number 2, another problem which a lot of students face in logical reasoning, which again we'll discuss in the next section also, which is analytical reasoning, is around timing. I'm able to solve questions. My accuracy is reasonably well, but solving 23, 24 questions in 35 minutes is where I'm facing a problem. Now, it might be because I'm taking a lot of time in comprehending the passage. It might be because I've understood the passage, but I'm confused between the final 2 options, which happens in a lot of questions. I could eliminate 2 options, but I'm confused between 2 options. So in the last 7 days, while you're solving questions, use a timer as much as possible. In a very ideal case scenario, you should be able to solve a question under 1 minute. Yes, in LSAT, you are given approximately 1 minute, 20 seconds, 1 minute, 15 seconds, if we calculate it, 35 minutes and 23, 24 questions. But your aim should be solving it within 1 minute. So number 1, focus a lot on concepts and the application of those concepts while practicing. Number 2, use a timer as much as possible. So this is what you, and then obviously do a lot of questions, which I told in the beginning that 50% of your prep time, the LSAT prep time over the next 7 days, should be devoted only to these critical reasoning questions. So if you're doing this, I think we should be reasonably prepared for the final test.
I'll take a liberty here, Harsh. Can I ask you to share screen and pull out a question and just explain it to students?
Take it.
I'm 100% sure they are expecting the same.
Take it. In fact, the same thing which I told around the concept, is a question visible? I think it would be better visible now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, couple of points here to the students. Number 1, this. So the passage which is given on the basis of which we have to mark the answer, that passage is known as, stimulus. In logical reasoning lingo, it's known as stimulus. So don't worry, while solving questions or while discussing it, you can still call it paragraph. But in case you see the stimulus written anywhere, don't get confused. It's stimulus. The question which is asked is known as question stem. Question stem and then the options. So what I normally suggest to the students is, should always start with the question stem. You should not start with the stimulus. Now, this is normally not an advice which is given in reading comprehension, but this is a different ball game what we're talking about. You should always start with the question stem and then move on to the stimulus and then move on to the options. Reason being, if I know that what exactly is being expected from me in this question, I'll read the question in that way. So in the question that we are solving here, it's a question on weakening arguments. We have to weaken the argument which has been put forward by the examiner. Now, if it's a question on weaken, I'll be focusing on different things in the paragraph. If it's a question on assumption, I'll be focusing on different things. If it's a question on paradox, I'll be focusing on different things. I should know what exactly is being expected from me. So it's a weakening argument question. Okay. So I'll quickly read the
please,
passage for everyone. People repeatedly complain that they see advertisements everywhere, but advertisers should not be blamed for this. These kind of words, but advertisers should. These are the words on the basis of which you can identify what is the opinion of the author. So this is the opinion of the people. People are repeatedly complaining that they are seeing advertisements everywhere. They're seeing it everywhere. That's not what the author is saying. But the author is saying that the advertiser should not be blamed for this. No one is forced to advertise its property. For many companies, it's an important part of their income. Football teams would have much less money if they were not sponsored, and no one is forced to look at advertising. You can turn off the TV between the shows or just click past the adverts in newspaper. And this, now the author gives his main conclusion. If you do not want to see the adverts, then just ignore them. Now you guys need to understand, see, the question is, which of the following statements would weaken the argument of the author? If we have to weaken the argument of the author, first we need to understand the argument of the author. And what is the argument of the author? Is no one is forcing you to look at the advertisement. The advertisement is just showing. If you don't want to see it, just switch off the TV. You just look somewhere else, but no one is forcing you to do that. And now you have to weaken it. So let's look at the options. Advertisers use many devious methods to gel their message across. Okay, they might be using devious methods, but I can always ignore them. They might be using real devious methods. They might be using very smart methods, but I can always switch off the television. I can always ignore. I can always look somewhere else. So yes, option A is not really weakening my argument, because in spite of me considering option A, in spite of me, thinking that option A is factually right, still my argument stands that I can still ignore the advertisement. So here's the wrong answer. B. Some adverts today are being hidden in what seems like pieces of art of public information. Now this is important. So people don't realize that they are being marketed to. Now this is important. What the author has said that you can see the advertisement, ignore them if you don't want to see it. You can check that an advertisement is coming and then ignore it. But what if I don't even know that I'm being advertised to? So which is known as, in movie lingo, it's known as product placement. I'm pretty sure बचपन में सबने क्रिश देखी होगी और क्रिश में वो कौन सा detergent use हो रहा है. It's very cleverly placed inside the movie. Krish, one whole song was a very famous advertisement of Hero Honda. I think वो दिल ना दिया करके एक song था. It's a very famous advertisement of Hero Honda. And the same thing happened in Koi Mil Gaya. So that's known as product placement. Now, if I don't know that I'm being advertised to, how can I ignore it? That's our answer. So author said, you can ignore the advertisement. My point is, if I don't know that I'm being advertised to, I cannot ignore it. Therefore, the correct answer is B. We'll quickly look at C and D also. By targeting people's unconscious thoughts, adverts are a form of brainwashing that takes away people's freedom to make choices. Yes, this is what people's criticism is. That is why they are saying, yeah, that, there are a lot of advertisements these days and these many advertisements should not be allowed. Yes, but this is not weakening author's argument. Author's argument was you can always ignore them. Option B said you will not be able to ignore them, but option C is not saying the same thing. Wrong. So C is wrong. Ignoring something that surrounds you all the time is not easy. Okay. So I think this was, so it's not easy. Okay. But the author nowhere said that it was easy. Author said that it is possible. If option D would have said that, it's impossible. Author was saying it's possible. Option D is saying it's impossible. Now D would weaken author's argument. But the author is nowhere saying that it's easy. And option D, by saying that it's not easy, D has not really weakened author's argument. So that is why even D is wrong. The correct answer is option B. If I don't know I'm being advertised to, how can I ignore it? That's why the correct answer is. That's all. So point is, the takeaway from from what we did in the last 10 minutes is, number one, always start with the question stem. Firstly, understand what is the examiner asking from you. Number two, while reading the passage, one thing that you should really be focusing on is the conclusion of the passage. See, if I have to weaken the argument, I need to find out the argument. And the argument is the conclusion. What was the conclusion of the passage here? It was that if you don't want to see the advertisement, ignore it. You have to read the complete passage, but you just need to remember the conclusion while moving on to the options. Number two. And number three, while eliminating or going for any option, just, what you need to do is just compare it with the conclusion which is given in the passage. I cannot check each and every option in light of the complete passage. I just need to check each option in light of the conclusion. That is why you need to find out the conclusion before moving on to the options. And this is how in 100% of the cases, because the questions which are asked in LSAT, they do not leave any room for ambiguity. If there are 4 options, there are 3 very clearly wrong answers, and there's 1 very clearly right answer. If you're not able to understand that, there's some problem with the understanding of the question. That doesn't mean that the question is subjective in nature. So yes, using these methods, you'll be able to hit the correct answer 100% of the cases. That's
wonderful. Really, really, I was mesmerized by the way the question was made. And believe me, LSAT questions are like that. They take a lot of efforts to make this question. Because I was sitting with Jason Dickinson, who's like the academic head, who's the guy who usually creates these questions and all. And he told me the pains they take to create one single question. The question is made by psychologists, some professor from Harvard, and these questions are also solved by many students. Some students from Harvard, Yale, Stanford, they solve these questions, and there's a uniformity which they bring to these questions, and only then a question is selected as final. So there are many students who ask me this question also: what is the difference between LSAT International and LSAT India? There's a lot of difference. LSAT International is made for graduate students. Okay, so the level of questions is very different. LSAT India, they don't have a 5-year program in US. Okay? We have a 5-year program. So the moment when LSAT India was launched in India, they came, they did a research, a proper idea, and they for humanizing these questions, they even created this research team which created a report and submitted to them. And that's how they created these questions. So all those questions which are solving are all custom made, specifically created, keeping in mind a student who has just graduated from school, how his thought pattern is. But then they are very clear on it. They want to select, as in we want to, law schools, we want to select rational minds. And that's why these kind of questions are asked to you. Because when you step into law school, these are going to be very important. Because in law school, I and Harsh, and even Harshvardhan here would agree to it, that when we were in law school, in our classes, such kind of questions were the ones which were put on the board. Not that they were like, the specific question which you asked, but then we had n number of options. I remember from my law school, rape was being taught. And then the topic was consent in rape. You won't believe it. That simple topic went on for 2 weeks. And, and you won't believe it, we were divided. There were some women who were strongly opposing the idea, and they were saying, if there is consent, it is not rape. But there were few of us who were saying, no, even with consent, sometimes it's rape. And there were such kind of options which were aired at the faculty. And you would see our faculty who was standing with such ease because he was loving it. He was loving the very sense that he is able to create that kind of a furor amongst us, where we were not seeking confusion, but we were trying to air our opinions, and out of which he made sense. And just like the question which Harsh solved, that's exactly how the class went. When homosexuality was, being discussed in Supreme Court of India in the famous case Navteej Singh Johar, this is exactly what was happening. Because Section 377, they were going to pick it up and they were going to throw it into the dustbin, saying decriminalizing means just pull off Section 377. But there were people, guardians of rights, who went to the court and said, Section 377, fair enough. With homosexuals, whatever is happening with Section 377 is wrong. But what about a scenario, just like the scenarios which Harsh was discussing here? What about scenario number one, where tomorrow, if a homosexual rapes or sodomizes a normal man, he would run to the court and he'll say, consent, without my consent, this guy did it with me. To which the police wala will not have anything to penalize the homosexual who committed this act with him, because Section 377 is not there. What about those actions where a man goes, as we live in a very weird kind of a society. Humans don't even leave animals. In those cases, I remember when this case was going on, 12 men in Agra had raped a goat. Can you believe it? They did it? And if Section 377 goes, where are you going to file a case against this? Because if you go and read Section 377, it only talks about unnatural sexual offenses. So like what Harsh said, you have to read properly what exactly the intent is. What is it trying to convey? Each section is specifically made for a specific section. Homosexuals, they were very right when they went and said, okay, pull it up, pull it down. And we don't want that section. But there were other sections of the society which Section 377 was guarding. And it was specifically the critical reasoning question which was being solved by the Supreme Court of India, where they said Section 377 states. But yeah, you cannot disturb homosexuals using this section. But we all know what the media made out. They go on a totally different critical reasoning of their own. I remember the media, and they came out and they said now homosexuals can marry also. I don't know from where that reasoning came in. The court did not say anything on that. Now that is being discussed, because if the homosexuals want to marry, they should go and challenge the marriage acts. This has nothing to do with it. Okay, wonderful, great. I'm so happy this is happening. Okay, let's move on to the next section. Again, Harsh, analytical reasoning. I'm very sure, and I request kids, if you are sitting there, you should be sitting with a copy and a pen, because it's giving out some very important points which you may just jot down, and after the session, just go through them once more. Okay, Harsh, analytical reasoning. What's your beat on that?
Okay, so again, decoding the analytical reasoning, a typical analytical reasoning question. So LSAT. So technically, in the world of analytical reasoning, there are a lot of topics. So there are puzzles, coding, decoding, blood relations, direction sense test, and series. But LSAT doesn't really ask these topics. Most of or in fact, all the questions can be categorized in a very generic umbrella, which can be called as something like a data range, right? So where there's a passage which is given, and the passage can be around days of the week. It can be around a table where there are a lot of people sitting, and then A sitting next to C, B sitting between D and E, and things like that. And you have to understand that passage properly. You have to really minutely read that passage, because there are, in a very short passage of just 50, 60, 70 words, there are a lot of very small factual details which are given. So unlike the question which we just solved, there was just one core idea, overarching idea, which was going through the complete passage. But that doesn't happen in an analytical reasoning question. So it is divided into a lot of chota lines. And each line is something that if you ignore just one line, you'll end up marking all the 5 answers wrong, because then the kind of graph which you have made or the pictorial representation that you've done of that would be wrong. So analytical reasoning, the first advice is really minutely read the passage, or if required, read the passage twice before making the representation of that passage. That's number one. Obviously, the advice of practice would still it's still applicable to analytical reasoning, and the same thing which I talked about in critical reasoning. In that, a problem which students face is around timing. They are able to solve the questions, but where they face an issue is they're not able to solve the questions in a limited time. I'm not saying the specific problem they face in LSAT also or not, but that's a usual problem, because most of the practice which students do, so how they do it is they are lying down on the bed, and there's a book which is open, and there's a song which is going on in the back, and there's a dog which is barking, and I start a question. I take 5 minutes, 10 minutes just to understand the question, just to understand the passage, and then आराम से मैंने अपना diagram बनाया, and then the question, and then so by the time the question ends, it's almost 20-25 minutes. Now, because I hit the correct answer, that's why I'm thinking that I am really a master of this subject. And because repeatedly I'm hitting the correct answer, now I'm really confident about my analytical reasoning skills. But when I go to solve the mock, that is when I understand that out of the 4 or 5 passages given, I could just solve 2 or 3. And because there's no negative marking, I still went for the flukes, but that's not how I can get my 90+ percentile. So analytical reasoning, same advice which was for critical reasoning also, please use a timer. For the next 7 days, whenever you're practicing analytical reasoning data arrangement questions, each and every question, you should be using a timer. And over the course of time, you should try to reduce your time. A day before LSAT, your time should be an ideal time which should have been used to solve that particular question. Number 1. Number 2, solve around 23-24 questions at a stretch, because that is what an analytical reasoning section comprises of in LSAT. So try to solve 23-24 questions under 30 minutes, not 35. Even if LSAT is of 35 minutes, but still you need to have that buffer space during the final examination. Because what will happen during the final exam is you'll keep double checking your answers. You'll not do that when you're solving your questions ghar pe, but you'll do that because it's the final examination. You need to have that buffer space for that also. So 23-24 questions in a time span of 30 minutes, use a timer, number 1. Number 2, reread the passage. Read the passage twice before moving on to the questions. You should be completely confident that you have not missed out any fact, because that is one of the biggest problems which happens with a lot of students. The questions are not per se difficult. What we have ignored just one fact, and due to that the complete representation was wrong. That is what normally happens. So just do these 2 to 3 things. I'm sure students would know the sources for practicing these questions. There are a lot of sources, including the LSAT sources themselves. So just ensure practice and practice with a timer. That's it. That's what I'd suggest.
Practice is very important. I would agree to that, because most of the students whom, when I used to teach, I remember the guys who used to practice hard were the ones who used to get through. And for practice, I usually use this example that, this is not by me, this is by Harsha Bhogle. I hope all of you know him. He's a famous commentator. So in one of his lecture, which he delivered at IIM Ahmedabad, I remember he said that more than Sachin Tendulkar, there was this person called as Vinod Kamble. I don't know how many of you from your generation even know him. Vinod Kamble was more talented than Sachin. And, these guys used to play together. From school level, they were playing together. And even for India, they have played together. But with Vinod Kamble, there was a problem. Even though he was talented, he never used to practice. But with Sachin, he said Sachin was less talented, but he used to keep on practicing. So even when MS Dhoni became the captain of India, he used to say, amongst the seniors, most of them like Saurav Ganguly and others would take a back seat, but it was this guy who would come and still practice. That is what practice does to you, be it sport, be it academics. This one thing is very, very important, and that is practice. And I think this is the time for you to do that, because we are in the final leg. Okay. Now, one question, Harsh, which I would want to ask you, is being a mentor and being taught so many students for LSAT and CLAT as well. Many students ask this question also, is how to score that coveted 90+ percentile in LSAT. Is there a suggestion from your side that what should the student do when he's sitting and when he's trying to score that bit? So 90+ percentile is seen as the safest score in LSAT, and also for Jindal also. So whenever a student asks us what is the closest percentile, we say 90+ percentile. So we take 80+ also, but 90+ is where the real thing happens, because you never know how many students are going to score. So that's why this question. Yeah.
Okay. So one would obviously be whatever that we've discussed in the last half an hour to 45 minutes is, see, it's a lot of times, I'm sure there are almost close to 200 students here. And a lot of times we think that there is something missing in my complete information ecosystem. And if I know that, if somehow मुझे कोई वो point बता दे, तो फिर मेरा goal hit हो जाएगा. मतलब मेरे को ठीक है. See, the sort of the marginal utility curve जैसा होता है जो शुरू में तो बहुत तेजी से जाता है पर धीरे धीरे करके stagnant हो जाता है और फिर धीरे धीरे करके फिर नीचे जाता है. So when we are beginning with the preparation, we don't know anything about the examination. We need to know a lot of things about that. We need to know about the pattern. We need to know about कैसे पढ़ना है, क्या पढ़ना है. But once you've reached that एक pinnacle, then it's more about execution of whatever has already, whatever you already know. I'm sure whatever advice me or Deepu sir have given in the last 45 minutes to these many students, there would still be a section of students who would not follow this advice properly in the next 7 days. And they might, and every day they might, end up just Googling how to get a 90+ percentile in LSAT. And then on Tuesday also they're doing the same thing. On Friday also they're doing the same thing. When their friends are actually implementing whatever was given as an advice here. So in the last 7 days, whatever we have suggested, a perfect execution of that would go a long way in ensuring that you get a 90+ percentile in LSAT. You don't need to know anything else except for whatever has been discussed in the last 45 minutes. You just need to know all of these things and implement it very well and take care of extreme basic stuff. So in fact, today I spoke with, we have a student, in fact, who was a topper of LSAT India March attempt. Her name is Vedika. She was a 99.82 percentile. So while discussing, while preparing for this session, I spoke with her today. And I asked her that is there anything which you would give as an advice to me, which I should be discussing with other students. You would now not be taking LSAT because she's already a topper, so that score would be considered. So, but any advice? She thought a lot and she said that no, sir. What I would only suggest is don't tell the students, don't make basic mistakes. There is a sectional time limit. But there were a lot of students who just did not look at the watch while solving each section. So in a regular examination, you need to look at the watch, as in the watch is important, but it's overall a time limit of, let's say, 120 minutes or 90 minutes. Here, for every section, you need to repeatedly look at the watch. And if only once during the complete examination, you fail to look at the watch for 15-20 minutes, your that section might get screwed up. And because of that, your percentile might fall a lot. So her only advice was tell the students to ensure that बहुत basic चीजें, that might include even your tech check. See, authorities, because it's a home-based proctored examination, they would take 110% वो इस चीज का ध्यान रखेंगे कि कोई भी unfair means use नहीं हो, which means there would be a lot of rules and regulations around this. You've got to take care of that. You cannot have a very weak kind of an equipment, very weak kind of an internet. This is not an academic advice, but this is an equally important advice.
Yes, absolutely.
You need to take care of this well before time, well before 25th. You need to take care of this well before 29th. That's when your examination is. While writing the examination, you need to take care of all the guidelines which are given over there. Last year, I spoke with a few other mentors, and I spoke with a few students जिनके साथ ही हुआ था कि उन्होंने उस दिन वो कैमरा यूज कर रहे हैं कोई इतना खराब सा जिसमें वो प्रॉपर्ली दिख भी नहीं रहे हैं, या फिर उन्होंने अपने ऑडियो को चेक नहीं करा, या फिर so you don't want these things to happen on the final day. So that's one. Please ensure that even at the tech end everything is sorted. Number two, while solving the paper, ensure that you keep reminding yourself of the basics of the paper. 35 minutes, these many questions, you have to solve all of them. Number one, there's no negative marking, which is a huge bonus. Ensure that you do not leave any question at the end. Another extremely basic and rookie mistake which a few might make. Sir, honesty is the best policy. मेरे को जो आता है मैं वही मार्क करूँगा, वो सब नहीं. कुछ इतना दुखता है वो. The examination, the authorities have allowed you to mark all the answers. कुछ छूटे तो that's another basic mistake. And number three, execution of whatever that we discussed in the last 1 hour. That is it, and that is something which will ensure that you get a 90+ percentile.
True. So now I'll start taking questions from some students. Some questions are very interesting. One of which is, I don't know why it is an anonymous attendee, but the question is very interesting and it will interest you as well. The question is, I want to know how to start reading fast. Now the second part of the question is very interesting. And how to stop that voice in our head while reading.
How to stop that voice in the head, how to stop that song in the head, how to stop that jingle in the head. It gets really irritating at times. And the worst part is a lot of times that jingle and that song is even there when we are teaching in the class. So
It is.
Yeah, that happens with us also.
it happens with all of us. Yes, we think that the students think that it's happening only with them, and there's some kind of a problem which they are facing, but it happens with everyone.
Yeah.
See, I think so you should not be reading fast just for the sake of reading fast, because then you will be compromising on your accuracy and it won't end well. Speed is important, but not at the cost of accuracy. That's one. Number two, I don't know how much of this is possible in the next 7 days, but we can surely make a start. Focus extremely high on the vocabulary and focus extremely high because, again, not everything would be implementable in the next 7 days, but still I give the suggestion. Focus extremely high on the subject-based vocabulary also. So there is certain vocabulary which is connected to economics. There's certain basic vocabulary which is connected to, let's say, science, certain basic vocabulary of various sports. Now, if a passage is coming on economics and you feel that these kind of passages are always facing a problem for me, you just Google the basic economic terms, and you should know about the basic FDI, FII, fiscal year, etc., etc. So, and this will ensure that automatically your speed increases. See, I can always just read fast, but that is so artificial in nature that while solving the questions, I'll always end up marking the wrong answer if I just keep reading fast without understanding what's written. So, but if I know the words which are written over there, if I know the meaning of that, automatically I'll read fast, because my reading speed becomes slow when there are certain words in the passage which I don't know the meaning of. And now I'm trying to find out the contextual meaning of that. And if I find multiple such words in the passage, then possibly I won't be able to understand the passage. So to increase the speed, focus a lot on vocabulary, number one. Number two, speed is important, yes, but don't go overboard with it. Ensure that your speed does not come at the cost of your accuracy, because your accuracy is more important. So yes, for now, for the last 7 days, I think this is what should be done.
Adding to what Harsh said, I used to advise students, I still advise students, and this is something which I also follow. Humanize whatever you are reading. So, create that bubble in your head and start seeing whatever you are reading. Like you should have examples in your head also. If it's a completely theoretical question, think about it. What is happening? What is happening in that question? Humanize, when I say humanize, you have to see it happening right in your brain. So this voice which is in your head will slowly die down, because you could sense those things. So I remember telling students that if you're reading about history questions and you are reading about a particular character in history, try to give that character some shape. For example, Jodha Akbar was released during those times. So I used to tell students, see Hrithik Roshan as Akbar, see Aishwarya Rai as Jodha Bai. So it was some funny thing. But humanize those things and start thinking in your head about those things which are right now happening just in front of you. And that makes this task very easy. And keep speaking to yourself, because there is something inside you, right? With whom you speak whenever you are in confusion. Arey, ab kya hoga? That's exactly you say, right? So rather than asking ab kya hoga, tell that person what you are reading. And that helps. So this irritating thing in your head. And if you practice this, believe me, you'll be so immersed into it that you'll stop thinking about anything else. There are people who will come and shake you. Arey, tumse baat kar rahe hain. What happened to you? So that's how I used to read. So I used to have a great liking for Nani Palkhiwala. So those books in which he has written about how the India of his dreams, etc. I remember I used to get so nostalgic after reading it that I was into it. I never used to even look around whatever is happening. And there were my friends who will come and push me. Ki, kitne baar padega ye kitab? I was like, every time I read this. Why? Because whenever I used to read it, I used to think about Nani Palkhiwala delivering a lecture right in front of me. He's saying those things and I'm sitting right in front of him. So that's the way to do it. Okay, another interesting question by Swati Nair. She says, on the test day, since LSAT is for 2 hours, 20 minutes, it sometimes becomes difficult, even if we have given mocks, to concentrate towards the end. And she says, especially when we are doing at home and it's online. What would be your advice to make sure you can focus on the entire exam stretch?
Whatever advice I'm going to give, none of this is something which you'll hear for the first time, but I'll just remind that these are the things which work. Number one, please have enough sleep before the exam date. Just to check this, whether this is going to work or not, or what's the importance of this, etc., etc. Over the next 7 days, I would not suggest you do this, but if someone wants to double check this, do this. Take a mock when you have slept for only 3 hours, and you'll get the worst score, you'll have the worst 2 hour 20 minutes of your life, because the last question which was asked here, the problem that guy was facing, you'll face it in each and every question, because your mind has not got sufficient rest. So now it's like a monkey mind. Now it's वो एक डाल से दूसरे डाल से पहले डाल, वो बार बार यही कर रहा है. वो thoughts quickly change होते जा रहे हैं, and this happens when your mind is not sufficiently rested. Your sleep is not required only for your body, it's equally required for your mind also. So, and it's extremely basic, and students end up making this mistake because tomorrow is a big day, tomorrow is the D day. हम उस चीज को इतना बड़ा मान लेते हैं कि हम वो बड़ी चीज के चक्कर में छोटी चीजें भूल जाते हैं, और वो छोटी चीजें ही बड़ी चीजों को फिर गड़बड़ कर देती. So ensure that you get enough sleep. That's number one. Number two, beachmake advice we gave multiple times, which is ensure that you have this a mini habit of reading for the next 7 days. Every day you're reading for 2 to 3 hours at a stretch. You're reading something which is important and something which is relevant, but more importantly, you're sitting here at one place. You're not leaving your chair. You're sitting here for 2.5, 3 hours. See, if you have this habit, if you're doing this for 7 days, you will not face a huge problem doing it on the 8th day also. But if 8th day is the first day when you're doing this is when you'll face problem. So we're all creatures of habit. So if we do this, for 7 days, 8th day, इतना दिक्कत नहीं होगा जितना अपने को आज लग रहा है, right? So that's two. Certain very basic things. Number one, take this with a pinch of salt. That is, if you guys anyway have coffee or tea, please have that before the exam. It works. I'm sure if you don't have it right now and you're stuck with only milk or Bombita or anything, you'll start having it very soon in college or post college, etc. But for all of us who are addicted to coffee or tea, we understand that वो जो पूरा वो concentration ऐसा चल रहा होता है, वो coffee tea के बाद पूरा ऐसा हो जाता है, बिल्कुल straight हो जाता है. So that's why. So, but don't develop a habit for this, obviously. But if you're anyway having it, have this before the exam. It'll create a huge impact. Stay hydrated during the exam. There's a reason why I have, drank water a couple of times. People have drank water a couple of times in the last 1 hour. The reason is this only. क्योंकि वो पानी पी के, मैं बहुत छोटी चीजों की बात कर रहा हूँ, but believe me, यही चीजें गड़बड़ करेंगी. वहां पे ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा that there is this magic pill that you need to take before the exam, or there was a habit which you should have inculcated बचपन में ताकि बड़े होके अपन LSAT properly लिख पाए. नहीं, these are the small things जिसकी अपन गलती कर देते, जिसके चक्कर में 2 hours 20 minutes लगातार बैठना बहुत बार मुश्किल हो जाता है, या अगर हम बैठते हैं तो concentration level बहुत dip हो जाता है. So stay hydrated. If you're anyway in the habit of having tea or coffee, have it before the exam, just before the exam. Its effect would be there for 2 to 3 hours. Number two, your thinking would generally be sharper, especially if you're having coffee. Your thinking would be sharper. Number three, please get enough sleep before the exam. And number four, for the next 7 days, every day, without fail, 2 to 3 hours of reading at a stretch. This should surely help. That's it. There's nothing else. कुछ बहुत बगावती, कुछ बहुत अलग कर भी नहीं पाएंगे. Most of the India is under lockdown right now. But यही करना है. इसके अलावा कुछ अलग नहीं करना है.
There's a word called as positive, which is nowadays seen as very negative. But yes, stay positive. Stay positive in your mind. Think about those things which you may do in law school. That's exactly how I used to motivate. I used to have a lot of students who were so tense. Kya hoga? Stay calm and be very confident about your hard work, because it's all about you. It's not about him or me or anyone else, even your parents. You were the ones who were doing it, right? So have that kind of a confidence in you. Now, another anonymous attendee has asked this question. So I'll give you 2 questions and you can answer them likewise. Anonymous attendee is asking, sir, I always get confused as to how to arrange the facts while solving LSAT AR questions. And I spend too much time on each question. So do we have a solution to this problem? That is question number 1. And one of those questions is directed towards you. They are asking, does Legal Edge YouTube prepare students for LR for LSAT? Yeah.
Okay. I always face a problem in arranging facts while solving the AR questions. So I am predominantly a critical faculty and not an AR faculty, but I have been asked these questions earlier, and I've discussed this with the AR members, the members of the AR team that we have. There's no quick fix to this, to be very honest. So see, it's a problem. It's not a problem. It's just the nature of that question. This is not something which, so problem is something which I am facing, but none of my competitor is facing. I don't know why I'm facing this problem. So I need a solution to that. But this is the nature of that question. So you should, and a good solution to this, or a perfect solution to this, or near perfect solution to this, can just be practicing a lot of questions over the next 7 days. And yes, in this case, you can practice certain questions even without a timer. Because अगर वो टाइमर की तलवार अगर ऊपर लटकती रहेगी, तो फिर उस टाइम पे हड़बड़ी में हो सकता है हम और ज्यादा गलतियां करें, और फिर वो जो रीअरेंजिंग फैक्ट्स वाला जो इशू है वो और ज्यादा है. To practice 20% of the questions without a timer, just focus on accuracy, and remaining 80% of the questions with a timer. But yes, this is not a problem. It's a nature of that question. And if it's a problem with everyone. And what I normally tell is, a problem of everyone is not a problem of anyone. So just a negative marking ko leke, Deepu sir, you would have, I think 2013 was the year when negative marking was introduced for the first time.
Yes.
I think both of us were teaching, and everyone was asking कि negative marking और ऐसा होगा और क्या होगा क्या नहीं होगा. And the same advice which all of us gave, that it's for everyone. And a problem of everyone is a problem of, it's not a problem of anyone, because everyone is on the same boat now. So even this thing is, it happens with everyone who's solving AR questions. So don't worry much about it. And second, regarding logical reasoning, we don't have any course as such on YouTube. But if you go to the Legal Edge channel on YouTube, you'll find a lot of videos generally of me solving critical reasoning questions. We've taken a lot of marathons whereby we have solved a lot of critical reasoning questions. So, and I solve it in a way like how I solve it here. So if agar kuch cheezein yahan pe clear hui, so you can watch those videos, and I'm sure you learn a lot from them.
Great. So we are almost at the end of the session, but there is one interesting question I would answer to it. And then Harsh, thank you. I know it's a very important time for you because exams are closing in. So after this question, I would say that you can leave. And then those questions, there are other questions which are specifically for Jindal, we'll start taking up. So this is one final question for you, which is asked by Sejal. And she's like, sir, do we need to focus on other topics in addition to data arrangement for analytical reasoning section of LSAT?
Do I need to focus on other topics in addition to data arrangement? So Sejal, the answer, a simple answer is no, but I'll just explain this answer. See, I'm sure a lot of students know that in CLAT, the name of mathematics has now been changed to quantitative techniques. So quantitative techniques is not a topic in itself. It's a way of asking questions, right? So same with data arrangement also. Data arrangement is a way of asking questions of certain types, right? So you do not need to do a lot of other topics, but data arrangement के अंदर ही seating arrangement हो गया, puzzles हो गया, या direction sense हो गया, ये सब होगा. So ये सारे questions data arrangement के form में पूछे जाएंगे. So do not go around solving questions like number series or syllogisms, etc., because they won't come. So her question data arrangement के format में ही आने वाला है, right? And whatever question that you're practicing, ensure that the structure of that is data arrangement. So as long as that is sorted, इसके अलावा इसके बाहर का कोई course नहीं आएगा.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Harsh. I know you are very, very busy. Even then, on just one request, you just turned up and you solved so many questions of those students. I'm 100% sure these questions will, and the session and the tips which you have shared, I'm 100% sure are going to reap real benefit for the students who are appearing for LSAT. I'm very thankful to you. And from Jindal Global Law School, I and Harsh, both of us, thank you. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deepu. Thank you so much.
Final words, Harsh, before we leave. Any final words for the students?
Possibly the most difficult question. So
we have almost covered everything, actually.
Yeah. See, what I would suggest to all the students, in fact, what once in a while जो pep talk होता है teacher student के बीच में, जो इस time पे और ज़्यादा होने लगा है because of COVID, because of the second wave, because a lot of us have people around us who are positive, or people around in worst case scenario, people around us that you have lost. And at the same time, हम लोग के ऊपर प्रेशर है, हम लोग के ऊपर किसी और का हो नहीं हो, हमारा खुद का प्रेशर है कि एग्जामिनेशन निकालना है, पहली बार दुनिया को दिखाना है, पेरेंट्स को, गार्जियंस को, कजिन्स को, शर्मा जी के बेटे को प्रूव करना है कि मैं भी कोई एग्जामिनेशन निकाल सकता हूँ, बट which is all fine, which is all good, but ensure that we see things in context. I think Deepu sir and Harsh both can vouch for this, is what you do over the next 5 years will matter a lot more than just the college that you go to. College has its own set of importance. We cannot ignore, obviously, top colleges, they are top for a reason. So they generally have better faculties, better infra, better culture, better students around you. So yes, they have their own set of importance, but in case you're not able to get through the top colleges, because only a handful of us will ultimately be able to go over there, do not lose sight of the context. And what's important is, for the next 5 years, how much are you focused on academics, on extracurriculars, co-curriculars, mooting, debating, client counseling, networking, meeting people, sharing ideas, honing your speaking skills, honing your writing skills, how much you're reading. I think beach mein discussion hua tha on the reading also, how much you're reading. So this will go a long way in ensuring that whatever that you have planned for life, हम उस चीज को अचीव कर पाए. कॉलेज सिर्फ एक रास्ता है वहां तक जाने का. अच्छा कॉलेज वो एक अच्छा रास्ता है, पॉसिबली सबसे स्ट्रेट रास्ता है, पर वो अकेला रास्ता नहीं है. सो यस, अच्छा इस एडवाइस को इस तरीके से भी नहीं लेना, अच्छा इसका मतलब क्या मेरे को तैयारी करने की जरूरत नहीं है, नहीं, बिल्कुल जरूरत है. कॉलेज अपनी जगह बिल्कुल इंपॉर्टेंट है, अपन तैयारी बिल्कुल करो. फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम इन लाइफ 17, 18, 19 साल के अंदर पहली बार कोई बड़ा गोल है जो अपन ने अपने आप के लिए बनाया. तो कुछ नहीं तो अपने ईगो के लिए अपने को तैयारी बहुत करनी चाहिए. बट इन केस अगर कुछ भी गड़बड़ हुआ, स्क्रू अप हुआ, तो याद रखना अगले 5 साल ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है सिर्फ कॉलेज. So that's it.
Awesome. I think this should hit bullseye and they should be taken very seriously. Thank you so much, Harsh. It was really great having you with us. And when the pandemic, closes down, let's hope for a normal life for each one of us.
Thank you so much, Deepu sir. Thank you, Harsh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So now we take questions on Jindal and JSAT law. There are a lot of questions on JSAT law. Okay, let me clear the air. Admissions to Jindal in a way are now closed because it can only be done through LSAT. So all those students who are here and who have filled up LSAT and are going to appear for the LSAT, which is coming up, for which the session was there, where Harsh was coming and telling you all those, tricks and tips, etc. So those students can appear and they will be allotted the 5-year program. So in Jindal, the 5-year program, we take students only through LSAT, but we have other programs also. And all of those programs are in a single campus. Okay, we have a single campus, the same set of faculties teach. So at Jindal, the best thing about it is the faculties. Most of them are from Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Oxford. And these are the people who follow the global curriculum and they are teaching the students on the same lines. On the same lines, we launched a great program last year. It was called as BA Legal Studies. And you won't believe it. From all around India, around 170 students are today attending BA Legal Studies at Jindal. And this has become a great success program for us. You know why? Because BA Legal Studies is a program which is made for those students who know that they want to do law, but still there is some confusion. They are like, yaar, ek baar pad liya jaye ki exactly legal theories hote kya hai? How does a court work? What is international law? When I say international law, people say international law means UN ka law hoga, etc., etc. Like right now, the Israel-Palestine issue is happening, and international law is something which is being talked about. But then how did international law develop? There is a very famous case called as Nuremberg trial, jahan pe judges ka trial hua tha. Okay, it's very interesting. You should go and Google it. Judges were put on trial. And you know who these judges were? These were the judges who were working for Hitler. So they were following his rules and they were prosecuting people. And in a way, they were doing their job, right? But when Hitler died and US or else the United Nations took over, these judges were put on prosecution. And that's exactly how international law was developing, where people from around the globe came and were discussing that whatever happened inside Germany, was it right or not? But Germany had its own law. Germany had its own law. It is very interesting. So these things are first taught to the students of BA Legal Studies in a very finesse mode. Because believe me, 5 years, I'm a product of 5 years. And if you ask me, it's very quick. It's very rapid. Remember, I just told you right now in the class that there was people who had already done their graduation. There were people who had done their first year, and there were people who had already done their graduation who were sitting with me in my class. And I was here just out of 12th, and I was wondering, "Arey baap re, inko itna sab aata hai." You guys are very brilliant. Believe me, during my time in the classroom, they were saying precedent. I know all of you know the meaning of precedent, but it took me 2 weeks to understand कि ये professor precedent जो बोल रहा है उसका meaning क्या है, and it's not president. I thought he's talking about the president of India. You getting it? That's how the entire classroom was for me, because it was quick, things were happening so rapidly. So BA Legal Studies is basically modeled on what US does, when they're teaching law. They don't have a 5-year program. There, a student has to first learn 3 years in a graduate school, 4 years in a graduate school, and then he takes a decision. So in our country, we have entrance examinations, right? They have aptitude tests. They have admission tests. So LSAT basically is an aptitude and an admission test, where a student would go and sit and just appear in this test and have an idea, should I do law or not? Do I have the aptitude for it or not? I hope all of you remember the scene from the famous series called as Suits. I hope all of you have seen Suits, where Mike Ross goes and cracks LSAT like this. He cracks it like this because he has the aptitude, and that's how he goes ahead and impresses Harvey, right? He tells Harvey that you can ask me anything, and he sits in front of a laptop and he's playing something, and Harvey keeps on asking him questions, and this dude, he has all the answers. You know why? Because his interpretation skills are so good, and that's why Harvey hires him, taking that risk. And that's the aptitude which we are talking about. Barack Obama, when he went and gave the LSAT, he had no clue that he wants to do law, because हमारे country की तरह वहाँ parents और सब मिलके they don't put pressure on kids कि तुम्हें law ही करना है, बहुत scope है, placement है, blah blah blah, जाओ. They don't say all these things. It's about the kid. He does 4 years of graduation and then he thinks, okay, I think I have aptitude for this, so let me go, right? Likewise, BA Legal Studies is a major hit in the United States of America. If you go and Google BA Legal Studies, the topmost law schools which come are all of US, and then you see Jindal. Berkeley, UC Berkeley is one of the pioneers in BA Legal Studies. Those students of US who do their graduation, or who are at the verge of their graduation, if they think that yes, I could do law, they would go and they would learn the theories of law through BA Legal Studies, 3-year course. And then they go for LSAT, and then they do JD, which is Juris Doctor, which is the LLB in US. The same pro forma we have tried to emulate at Jindal Global Law School. And that's where all these 170 students have come up from all over India, and they're doing it because they want to do it in that manner, where they want to be theoretically very, very clear. And believe me, before launching this course, we had a discussion with almost all the market leaders, all the law firms, etc. And all of them said, yes, we require theoretically strong students now. Because yes, the 5-year students are very smart. They're coming and they're serenading everything. But somewhere we do think that we need those students also who work a lot on theory, who work a lot on reading, who work a lot on research. And that's where these students of Jindal Global Law School, who would graduate after 6 years, not after 5 years, they would stand out in the crowd because they would be BA Legal Studies honors and then LLB honors. One wonderful thing about BA Legal Studies, another is, after 3 years, if a student thinks he is not made for law, he can go and do any other graduation. He can go for an MBA, he can go for a UPSC examination. UPSC examination is something which is going to be a child's play for you, because all those things which they ask you in UPSC, in terms of not just law, in terms of humanities as a subject, will be taught to you. And then again, they'll be taught to you by the Jindal professors. Getting it? So the Jindal advantage is also there. And this course is something which many students are also opting for. And we already have some students who have enrolled from the previous administration. So we are taking students via JSAT law, because we have also taken students through LSAT. We are also taking students from JSAT law just because of one reason, because LSAT still doesn't have that kind of a penetration. There are students who take it because there are many prejudices which students have. So after the examination, there are many students who come running to us and tell us that we need admission. And during that time, we cannot admit any students unless until we have not taken an entrance examination. So JSAT law is similarly, it's an examination which is very similar to LSAT, same set of questions, same kind of reasoning, etc. And it is conducted by Pearson. Again, we are not the ones who are conducting it. Again, it is a home proctored test. So there are questions which I can find here where many students are asking, is it a home proctored test? Absolutely, it's a home proctored test. I would request Harsh, he would put the link of JSAT Law from where you can register for JSAT Law in the chat box, and you guys can go there and you can register there. Though when you will register, there will be a column which will ask you for test center, just leave it. There is no test center. Again, it's very similar. It is conducted by Pearson VUE. You have to sit at home, you have to have an internet connection, and that's how you solve it. Okay. So moving on to some other questions that the students have asked me. Where does JGLS stand out of other law schools? I hope all of you have heard about QS rankings. QS rankings are world rankings. They are standout rankings. They are the rankings which are taken up by many universities globally to even select students when they are applying on, for foreign university. QS is the ranking which stands out for its ranking for non-STEM universities globally. When I say non-STEM, that means no IITs, etc., etc. Okay, all humanities universities and commerce universities, etc. And this QS is the one which has ranked Jindal Global Law School as the 76th law school in the world. I repeat, 76th law school in the world. So if you go and check that list, there are many law schools in the United States of America which are below us now. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. Go and see the ranking. It's a very proud thing. Now, Jindal doesn't advertise itself that much because we follow a very Apple-ish kind of advertising policy where, we do not go and just, you will not see us at IPL. You will not see us at everywhere else. So we follow a very different form of marketing. We don't have a marketing department also. That's the beauty of Jindal. So people might have not known about this, but then Jindal is the 76th rank because of few parameters. So NLS Bangalore, the ranked #1 law school, we beat them last year just because of one reason. QS is not hard to please. Believe me, they are not hard to please. They would investigate and they would try to find. Now, what made Jindal stand out? #1, the faculty. The kind of faculty-student ratio which Jindal has is unbeatable in India. Believe me, it's 1:12. That means for every 12 students, there is a faculty. We are going to further reduce it to 1:9. That's the kind of hiring at Jindal which is happening. So faculties are not an issue for students. Faculties are always there for students. And these faculties are being managed in such a manner where every faculty is held accountable for the growth of a student. You would see our faculties creating lectures, creating articles and publishing them in global journals where even a student is involved with them. And that is happening because faculties here are ranked and promoted on the basis of how much are they participating in a student's welfare. The kind of student environment which has been created here, that is one of the most important things. The kind of international exposure which they get is something which is unparalleled. At Jindal, when you take admission at Jindal Global Law School, you are not a student of early law school. We follow something which is called as interdisciplinary. You know what it is? It is nowhere being followed in India. It is being followed at Jindal, and then you would see it in Harvard, Oxford, Stanford, Yale, etc. So when a student gets enrolled in Jindal Global Law School, from morning to afternoon, he'll attend his law school classes. After that, the business school, the liberal arts school, the architecture school, these schools will come out with elective courses and absolutely free. Free means you're already paying in the fees. So these are those things which you need not pay. All these schools are going to come out with some of the electives for you, which are ranked, marked, and also credited in your mark sheet. So when you apply for a job, and if some other law school has also applied, 100% a law firm is going to take a look at it. And then he'll say, oh, he has done entrepreneurship from business school. He has also learned psychology from liberal arts. I want to meet this guy. And then your priority of selection gets more because you have exposure to more subjects other than just law. You understand? That's the reason why Jindal Global Law School, it's a university with different schools. While other law schools, they only have, when I'm talking about my alma mater and many national law schools, they only have law. Other law schools lack this, and that's where Jindal stands out. The kind of, you won't believe it, at Supreme Court, in many of the judgments, Jindal Global Law School professors are quoted. Can you believe it? I'm not making this up. Go and research and you'll find out. Professor Khagesh Gautam, he has just released his book with Abhishek Manu Singhvi. And chapters of that book were basically quoted by a judge at Supreme Court. And he says he's an upcoming jurist. He's a great friend of mine. So we are also holding another webinar soon and you'll be notified. And you know what the topic is? The topic is on legalization of cannabis, where this guy has researched When I say legalization of cannabis, people think, oh, ye kya baat ho rahi hai? But this guy has done a research academically on how the usage can be permitted. And he's not someone who will just deliver lecture and forget. He's going behind it. He's trying to convince the government of India that this has to be done. This is what Jindal Global Law School faculties are doing. And that's the kind of independence that they have got here. There is Professor Deepika Jain, who was quoted by, you can just go and Google it, by Supreme Court of India in one of its judgment because of a gender justice, the work which she has done. Think about it when you're taught by these kind of faculties. That's what Jindal Global Law School is all about. There are so many things. You should visit our website, and I would request Harsh to share those brochures which VC sir had shared with us. You can see about our sports facilities, the health facilities. Now is the time when health is of priority for parents and students as well. We have done a lot of investment even at the health frontier also. Digital teaching, online teaching, all students sitting at home are accessing our library here. Library is very important for law school. Keeping that in mind, the entire library is at disposal of the students sitting at home. That's the kind of facility which they are being provided. You get it? So that's how it stands out. Okay.
So there's one thing which I'm reading it through a lot of questions is we take admission to the 5-year program only on the basis of LSAT India score. Please mark my words. We take admission to the 5-year program at Jindal Global Law School only on the basis of LSAT India score. There's a difference between LSAT and LSAT India. There's a second pointer. Third thing, there's a difference between JSAT and JSAT law. We are here specifically talking about JSAT law as an alternative exam. And right now, the only viable option to get you admitted to few of our programs at Jindal Global Law School. CLAT has been postponed. ALET has been postponed. Last day to register for LSAT India is now gone. So the only option remaining with a law aspirant who want to take admission into the LLM program at Jindal Global Law School, LLB program at Jindal Global Law School, or BA honors in legal studies is JSAT law. So these were the clarification which I wanted to give you. Whereas a few of the questions are related to the fees, etc., etc. I've already shared the link of the brochure in the chat box. You can go through that particular brochure. And if you have any specific question, I've also shared the link to our admissions team, to the members of our admission team. You can get in touch with any of our admission counselor and they will help you out. So
how much we need to get admission JGLS is a common question which is appearing. I'll give the answer. 80 percentile and above is something which we are looking at right now. Okay, so you need to aim for 80% and above. It can be higher also. You never know. Okay.
So it's a minimum which we are
saying. For LSAT, there are a lot of resources through which you can get mock test of LSAT. It is even available on their website called as discoverlaw.in. Now, additionally, if you want more lessons, etc., one of our colleagues, his name is Ankit Dhotrekar, he has a lineage of lectures which are being provided online. They are free lectures. They are on YouTube. And he's taking it on English, he's taking it on logical, all combined. He's even taking some master class. I guess, Harsh, it is going to happen just now, right?
Yes.
He's going to take a master class of students. So if you need more and more material, more and more guidance, even Jindal Global Law School is providing it in form of Ankit Dhotrekar, who's a professor at Jindal. He's also taking those sessions, and that too absolutely free. So which link do we need to visit for these sessions? Harsh, can you share that link with them quickly where they can just go? We have a YouTube channel where even this session will be recorded and we'll be, posting that there. So in case if you want to revisit Harsh Gagrani's those pearls of success, which he just discussed with us a day before an exam also, you can do that. On the channel, we are going to upload all those things. I think we have covered almost all the decent questions. About how many students appear for LSAT India every year? Close to 8,000 around students. That's the, that's the bandwidth.
Also, I see your
okay, LSAT related specific questions. If you have some LSAT related specific questions. Now, LSAT is not conducted by us. It's conducted by LSAC USA. Okay, they have an office in India also. Their website is discoverlaw.in. Please visit. They have a helpline also. Call them, email them. That's how you have to ask questions about LSAT. And I think they are in very good touch with each one of you through emails, etc. So keep checking your email. They're doing it very meticulously. They will even carry a weather check with you. They're going to do a run check, which Harsh was just referring to here. That you should do a rain check so that on that given D-day, things don't go bad. Okay, so that is something which you should do. So just
And
relating to admissions at Jindal, I, Harsh, and I have an entire team which is there to help you. Harsh has already shared the link with you. You can call us, you can email us, and you can get in touch with us. Okay, we are
and
all there for you. But right now, your tension or else your priority should be to go ahead and crack LSAT. These about us, we are always there. Once LSAT is done, you can get in touch with us. So go for LSAT. That is more important.
And to the candidates who are worried about, we remember this year LSAT is being conducted twice. So we took admission on also on the basis of March LSAT exam. So approximately 40% of the seats we have admitted through March exam. 60% are still available for June LSAT. So you don't need to worry. Prepare well. Don't take stress. We are already giving you the free live sessions to prepare for LSAT India. Prepare well, give the exam well, and I'm all hopeful that you will be able to score above 80 percentile, which is the minimum requirement to get admission 5-year program of Jindal Global Law School.
There's a very funny question here which I want to take. Someone is asking me, can we leave board preparation for these 7 days and just focus on LSAT? I would say yes, because you never know when your board exams are going to happen. It's just about few days. So leave everything aside, I would say. Just focus on your LSAT. Do nothing else. Just focus on your LSAT, because preparation for LSAT in a way is going to help you for all other exams as well. Boards, we don't know when is it going to happen. There's a secret which I usually don't discuss because parents get very irritated. The 12th board scores which are required as per Bar Council of India. So we follow Bar Council of India. As per Bar Council of India, for doing law, the percentage which is required by students in their 12th board is 45%. Okay, 45%. That's something which is required for doing law anywhere in India. That's exactly how it is. Even for CLAT, if you go and check, that's exactly what they have. 50 or 45, that is the percentage. You know why? Because in law school, it's called as law school. Everything starts from the scratch. So whatever you are done till school, things are going to get revived. And you have to start from the very scratch. So what matters is the entrance examination and the score you get in entrance examination. But I'm not saying that you leave your 12 boards and just leave everything aside. For these final few days, you can prepare. You have to score good in your 12th, because when you will reach a law school, most of your friends and faculties, when they'll meet you, casually they're going to ask you, how much did you score? When you'll come to Jindal Global Law School for vetting your documents, we are going to ask you your 12th board results. We are not going to reject you if you have scored less percentage, say, 70, 80 or whatever is less. But again, it's a kind of a matter that you can always flaunt and say, okay, I scored this much. Okay, so don't worry about it. But for this last few days, I think you can take a step back and you can focus on your LSAT, because that is more important. You go to YouTube and search for the classes which I'm saying. Harsh has some really good classes which he has taken. You can just type LSAT and his videos are there. Plus, Ankit has also taken some really interesting questions, and he's going to be live in few moments from now, where you can attend his live masterclass also, where he's trying to solve questions and making sure that all the students who are searching for content are not running here and there. Okay, I think guys, I need to end it here itself, because Ankit will soon come and answer to all those questions. If you have more questions, what you can probably do is you can reach out to us with these questions through our email, or else we are also available on WhatsApp on those numbers which has been shared, and you can be a party to us. Thank you so much, guys. You have been such a good audience, and that's the beauty of interacting with law aspirants. That's what I say, right, Harsh?
Yes.
And a real good audience. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. All the best. Stay safe, guys. We have created this entrance examination for you guys, so that your parents are safe. You can stay at home. You can give the examination on time. You can crack the examination on time, and even your law graduation starts on time. That's the beauty of it.
Yes, and the session at Jindal Global Law School starts on 2nd August 2021.
2nd August. Be very clear. So you are not going to miss out in already a concise program, because 5 years, as I say, is a concise program. Because when it ends, you feel very bad. You're like, "Arey yaar, abhi to samajhna hi start kiya tha." So every day matters, and that's why we conduct this test in a home proctored manner and take home proctoring very seriously. They are very strict. So, they have caught students with mobile, they have caught students with some external voice, etc. So they have their own rules, and we do not challenge them. We do not interfere. They are too good. They use their American AI technology. We do not question them. They give us the result and we follow it. So you have an issue, you have to take care of them all. We will not interfere. their decision is unanimous. So be very careful when you give the examination. Give it, come out with flying colors, and we'll be there to welcome you to Jindal Law School. Okay. Thank you so much. Good night, and thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you.